Welcome. Here's a recap of our first segment, the early years. We begin our tour of the second room of our show, Ray Eames in the Spotlight, held at Art Center College of Design in Pasadena, California, with a quote from Ray's close friend, Ben Baldwin, who described her thusly, quote, "She was always, on point. She was always sort of bursting with enthusiasm about everything, particularly if it was that big." Ben Baldwin, architect and interior designer, was an important link between Ray and Charles. Baldwin and Ray took classes together with painter Hans Hofmann. Later, they kept up an active correspondence after Ray moved to Florida to care for her ailing mother. During that time, they worked on a mural project together, for which Ray created a number of studies. Notice the scale of her sketches on the left compared to the business card in the upper midsection of this image. Despite the sketches being smaller than two business cards laid side to side, they are amazingly detailed and powerful. They bear a striking resemblance to the paintings we saw in the first video of this series. Shortly after her mother's death in 1940, Ray joined Baldwin at Cranbrook Academy of Art, located in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan, where she audited weaving classes. It was there that she met Charles, whose marriage to his first wife, Catherine, was dissolving. Ray and several other students assisted Charles and Eero Saarinen with their entries for a Museum of Modern Art competition in which the Eames Saarinen team won first prize for both seating and case goods. Ray returned to New York, which was no small feat according to Charles because of all of her luggage. She and Charles maintained a passionate correspondence, with this panel incorporating many of Charles's letters to Ray. Looking at another panel, we see Charles's proposal letter to Ray written in late May of 1941. It reads, "Dear Miss Kaiser, I am 34, almost, years old, single again, and broke. I love you very much and would like to marry you very, very soon. I cannot promise to support us very well, but if given the chance, we'll sure in hell try. Soon means very soon. What is the size of this finger?" And in June 1941, following his divorce, Charles and Ray married in an intimate ceremony in Chicago at the home of Helen Donnelly. A dear friend of Ray's, she had given her blessing beforehand, describing Charles as, quote, "a swell guy, one of the wisest young men I have met," end quote. Immediately thereafter, the couple drove to California and began establishing strong ties in Los Angeles's creative community. John Intenza, publisher of Arts and Architecture magazine, helped them secure a Neutra-designed apartment where they would soon mold plywood using their Kazam machine, installing it in their second bedroom. It was a time for experimentation and exploration. Notice the mural with shadows to the right of them, so similar to the tiny sketches we saw just a few moments ago. They played with shadow, light, and reflection, as well as with furniture, and the making and hanging of paintings and mobiles. The Eameses' experiments yielded beautiful results that fit the need. This included designs for the war effort, such as airplane and glider parts, body litters, and 150,000 leg splints for the U.S. Navy. Amidst these enormous projects, down on the beach, Ray gave summer painting lessons to her beloved stepdaughter, Lucia. Now, let's venture below the splints to take a look at what I call the wood vitrine, which is museum lingo for a display case which showcases art, often with a glass or plexiglass top. Although, in this case, because of glare considerations, we took photos without the vitrine's bonnet on. First off, the two magazine covers in the back are hard to miss. Celebrations of Molded Wood, Arts and Architecture magazine from September 1942, features the molded plywood sculpture, and nearly 50 years later, International Design showcases the ribbon-like top of the Eames plywood folding screen 1946 in a special 1990 West Coast issue devoted to Ray and Charles Eames. The molded plywood sculpture, made of wood of varying thicknesses and curvatures, is shown here rendered on a pedestal. It was such a hit that Lily Saarinen telegrammed Charles on December 2nd, 1942, quote, "Please sell me Ray's wood sculpture on magazine cover as want to give it to Arrow for Christmas," end quote. And enamored with the splints, Sergei Chermayev, director of the Industrial Design section at the Museum of Modern Art, wrote to Charles a year later in 1943, quote, "I think one of the most significant developments of the last 10 years is the freedom with which we can manipulate sheet material, and I want to make this almost the central theme of our exhibition. We have, of course, the organic furniture stuff, but I should like to include what you have done since on your own. Certainly, we should have the splint in its various stages, so beautifully photographed in California Arts and Architecture. I further think we could make a nice point of relationship between such functional things and Ray's plywood abstractions," end quote. Our wood vitrine featured several marvelous sketches by Ray of the plywood abstractions made from leg splints, outlined here in pencil, but not the final magnificent plywood sculptures as seen here. It is a great looking exercise to look back and forth to see the differences between the sketch and the final piece. Check out the differences at both top and bottom, and the shapes of negative space. And we can do it again by comparing another sketch in the exhibition with a final sculpture that was not. Although the hanging, gently turning splints were the showstopper in this room, another eye-catcher was the array of magazine covers that Ray designed for John and Tenz's Arts and Architecture magazine over a 3-year period. While these are not presented here in the exact order of creation, you will be able to see the vast range. 6 covers in 1942, the unbelievable number of 10 in 1943, 8 in 1944, and then later in 1947, 2 final covers. Before we examine a few of these covers and Ray's preliminary sketches for them, notice the mannequin in the corner. This was a shot taken before the full installation. To protect Ray's clothing, many pieces at least 70 years old, we waited until the last minute to dress the mannequins. In segment 4, we discuss Ray's clothing at greater length, but do notice the fabulous lining color of this jacket. Her clothing often revealed hidden surprises, whether lining color, bows, extra hooks, patterned hand-sewn seam binding, or increasingly capacious, over time, pockets. 5 magazines stand on the large platform with a number of related sketches in front of them. Let's take a closer look. We have placed 2 objects together, a preliminary sketch on the left and the May 1942 cover on the right. The 2 are very similar. Both have an olive green background, and the graphic treatment of California arts and architecture is very much alike. Both have linear drawings in the top half and a realistic image on the bottom half. Both have a solid white orb near mid-right, albeit with a different treatment. The sketches might be construed as a moon, and the covers a floodlight. The cover's top half has more elements: vertical, domed, and circular, to name a few, while the sketch's cloud-like form was removed. And while the sketch captured the essence of the cover's bottom portion, the collaged foamy sea and presumably desert rocks are clearly defined in the latter. Further close examination of the cover reveals little amoeba-like forms hand-drawn in the surf at the far right. No date appeared on the sketch that we just examined. However, while this next sketch is dated January 1943, it appeared instead a month later, in February 1943, with heavier shading and with a shaded oval rather than a fully blackened one. And this little treasure, with cutout forms and such an intricate cutout of the word architecture in the upper region, never made it as the cover for May 1943. Instead, this was the featured design. Our next example involves 1 sketch, 2 magazine covers, and 13 months between them. This provides a clear-cut example of the Eameses holding on to good ideas and using them when most appropriate or achievable, much like the single-shell, compound-curved chair made in plastic rather than in wood 11 years afterwards. Our story begins with this sketch. Do you see the brown stain on the arch of the foot? That mark is residue of glue. Another foot, exactly the same size, was placed on top of the bottom foot, thus eliminating the words post and Thomas. In the exhibition, we attempted to convey this by placing the single foot atop a plexiglass lift. Despite that, the eventual cover for December was quite different, although there are remnants that remain. Henry Wallace is still present, along with his middle initial A. The title of his speech, New World Democracy, is elaborated upon, and House for Thomas Mann can be seen in its totality, without Thomas obscured in the black rectangle. But this was not the end of the foot. It returns 13 months later with 2 different sized feet. The smaller one overlaps the larger. And if you start at the big toe of the solid black foot and follow the left side down of both feet, they form a wider arched area, or a 3rd foot. We conclude our examination of magazine covers with a look at work done in preparation for the cover of August 1944. 3 possible sketches for the cover, all with interesting forms in the background and linear treatments laid over them. Notice the piece on the right. The back shape is not solid, but instead is made up of small forms made from a seemingly continuous line. In the published cover, you will see something similar. Ray's exploration did not end. Take a moment to compare them. You may have noticed that Ray played with the word August, printed and cursive. You may also have noticed that both sheets hinted as to other projects. On the left, the notation stationery and a sketch of a room. On the right, a number of sketches for the Evans product symbol and logo. This is the design that won out. Notice the background. Do you see that it doesn't fully fill the page? Ray played with the form, nearly a cloud, as she did with her earlier explorations, yet notice the hundreds of small forms within it. I have mentioned that many of Ray's notes incorporated several projects and/or thoughts or notes in very tiny handwriting, all on a single sheet of paper, no matter how small. In this case, along with magazine cover and logo sketches, explorations of business cards, and notes, there was a shopping list, beginning with paper dishes and potato chips. Clearly, this was for a large group of people: 25 chickens, 12 tomatoes, and 2 cakes. In the exhibition, we included 3 pieces of fan mail for the covers. Marjorie Cast wrote, quote, "Your formidable monthly publication is frightfully attractive. I should like to subscribe," end quote. Don Albinson, writing about his engagement, also raves, quote, "The covers are still wonderful, all. Is there any kind of prize given for the outstanding cover of the year? End quote. And Helen Donnelly, who hosted the Eameses' wedding in Chicago, quote, "Dear Charlie and Buddha, I have been able to keep up with your activities through the covers and competitions. Excellent work. My best, H." End quote. A number of other items populate the logo plinth: an Eames product pin, exploration of tags, logo designs for Glass Form Incorporated in Gardena, California, other Evans product logos on business cards, and perhaps my favorite, this hand-gridded Evans symbol logo. After exploring a variety of treatments for the date 1943, Ray used this gridded approach to finalize her graphic solutions for both her arts and architecture covers as well as her stationery. John Intenza, publisher of Arts and Architecture magazine, for whom Ray designed 26 covers, was gifted a birthday card in 1947 designed by Charles. Clearly portrayed as a man of many hats, Intenza announced the Case Study House program in January 1945. Charles and Eero Saarinen designed a house, Case Study House number 9, for Intenza, which was completed in 1950, while the Eameses' house, number 8, was finished earlier and occupied on Christmas Eve 1949. More discussion of the Eames house will follow in another video. But perhaps you've been wondering what the hanging piece is in the left of the upper image. Ray created several designs for hanging mobiles, including this one at Cranbrook. And another design was sent to a hospitalized friend who wrote, quote, "What extreme pleasure and enjoyment I'm getting from my beautiful, gay, happy mobile. Its continual reorganizations and ever-changing compositions have kept me enthralled for hours on end all day long. And at night when I can't sleep, I flick on my light and watch it floating and gyrating over my head." There is an added postscript. You will be amused when I tell you of the various reactions to it here at the hospital, end quote. We will now end this gallery tour by coming full circle. Early on, we showed you small mural designs Ray made for her friend Ben Baldwin. We will close with even smaller gems that Ray painted as a newlywed. Enjoy, and thank you for joining us.